crossing this bridge near Highland Park is not a big deal today. But this bridge is named after a couple Toledoans who crossed a much bigger bridge on a much more dangerous day. Today we're going to talk about the Allied push across the Rhine River, slightly bigger than Swan Creek, and how Toledo's Major General John Leonard and Sergeant Alex Drabik, for whom this bridge is named, became nationwide heroes after the war. To understand how big a deal this was, we got to talk about what a big deal the Rhine River is. The Rhine isn't the border of Germany, but it's the border of the heart of Germany. You know how the Mississippi River is kind of seen as the heart of the South and the Midwest? It's kind of like that, the river that holds the nation's identity. But to get to the Rhine, you had to cross the Siegfried Line, which we had talked about before. Once Americans broke across the Siegfried Line fortifications, it was just a matter of time before they made it to the big river. Commanding one of the units heading quickly for the Rhine was an old Toledo boy, Major General John W. Leonard. Leonard grew up on Eastern Avenue on the South End and went to the Immaculate Conception Elementary School, the old Derby Church. His mom, Anastasia, told reporters that young John Leonard was a, quote, shy, polite little fellow and afraid of firecrackers and noise of any kind. And, she said, he was a fine student, a great one for schooling. Leonard graduated from the old Toledo Central High School, TPS's first high school that stood where the main library is today. And then he went to the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. He graduated in 1915 and was not the best known member of his class. That honor would probably go to a classmate you've heard of, some guy named Eisenhower. Now, Leonard, by the time we get to World War II, was already a decorated soldier. In World War I, he'd been awarded the Distinguished Service Cross for action in the First World War in France. But in the winter of 45, Leonard was commanding 9th Armored Division, a big tank division. And on March 7th, one of the smaller units under Leonard's command, the 27th Armored Infantry Battalion, made it to the small Rhine River city of Remagen. And they were shocked to find that one massive bridge, the Ludendorff Bridge across the Rhine, had not yet been successfully blown up by the German defenders. Now, you gotta understand why this was so important. The Germans had been blowing up every bridge across the Rhine to keep American trucks and tanks from getting across the big river into Germany's heartland. If the Americans had to set up temporary bridges, the engineers building them would be sitting ducks, and the army wouldn't be able to get as many men and as much stuff across as they could with an existing big bridge. So the 27th Battalion's Able Company, the commander orders a platoon to get across the bridge and capture the other side before the Germans can blow it up. Those guys get pinned down by German fire, and that's when another Toledoan shows up. Alex Drabik grew up out on Wolfinger Road in Sylvania Township. His cousins remembered that he was bashful around girls as a kid. And like so many Toledoans that we've talked about, his parents were Polish immigrants. Alex grew up in the country and came into Toledo to work at the Folger Packing Company, which was a meat processing facility up on Phillips Avenue in West Toledo. Drabik led Able Company's 3rd Platoon out onto the Ludendorff Bridge, and he said he, quote, yelled to my men to go across, firing into the tunnels on the hill on the other side. We ran down the middle of the bridge, shooting as we went. I didn't stop because I knew if I kept moving, they couldn't hit me. Racing across the bridge under fire, knowing that the whole bridge was rigged to explode, Drabik said, quote, all I was worrying about was getting over and organizing the other end so we could get our armor and men across, end quote. When they reached the ground at the other end of the bridge, Drabik said he got my men into a skirmish line to hold the enemy if they did come. We took some cover in some bomb craters. Then we just sat there and waited for the others to come in. That's the way it was. Alex Drabik was the first American to cross the Rhine, but he was only one man, and it was only one bridge. But it was the first step of the last act of the European War. Drabik was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross personally by General Leonard, his fellow Toledoan who'd been awarded the same medal at almost the same age, only a couple hundred miles away during the First World War. Drabik and Leonard were instant heroes back home in Toledo. A Blade reporter went out to interview his mom, who didn't speak any English. But in Polish, she told the reporter, I am very proud. Reporters went over to Eastern Avenue too to talk with General Leonard's elderly mom, Anastasia, and they found her holding a small toy tank, a replica of her son's command tank, which was named, of course, Anastasia. Hundreds of tanks and trucks and thousands of soldiers flooded across the bridge over the next 10 days before it was finally brought down. They established the Allied presence over the Rhine. As German forces rushed there, they left other river crossings less defended, and American engineers built bridges over the river. Within 7 weeks, the war would end. That summer, General Leonard and Sergeant Drabik made it home to the Glass City. A parade was held in their honor, and later, this bridge across Swan Creek was dedicated in their names. A bridge at home dedicated to two men who helped win the war on a bridge far from home. And about 10 years ago, an Ohio historical marker was put up at Drabik's birthplace, just outside of town. As the wind whipped by there this fall when I filmed this, I swear I could hear his mom saying in Polish, "Jestem bardzo dumny." I am very proud.